This video explores the often hidden and overlooked experiences of women who loved other women in the centuries of old Europe, from the medieval period into the early modern era, and even before that in late antiquity. At its heart, this is not a story of revolutions or dramatic change, but of quiet endurance, adaptation, and coded survival. In a time when societies did not openly recognize lesbian identity, and when most forms of non-traditional relationships were silenced, ignored, or punished, these women lived their lives carefully and creatively, finding ways to connect, express affection, and sometimes build entire lives together within the narrow confines of the cultures they lived in. Because the word lesbian and the modern understanding of sexuality did not exist in the same way in the past, we look at relationships between women in broader, quieter forms, often called romantic friendships, sworn sisterhoods, or spiritual companionships. Some women lived together and shared lives for decades, often being seen by others as close friends or companions, while hiding deeper emotional and sometimes romantic bonds. Some left behind letters, journals, or were mentioned in court records, often because of accusations or misunderstandings. Others lived unnoticed, blending into the expected roles of unmarried, women, nuns, widows, or caretakers, all while creating personal worlds of connection behind closed doors. In this video, we will not only explore their daily lives and historical records, but also the spaces that offered protection, like convents, quiet homes, female workspaces, and how class or religion shaped their ability to survive in a society that rarely acknowledged them. It is a story made of soft patterns and quiet resistance of silence that speaks of longing and presence of lives, shaped around secrecy and subtle joy. It is not a loud history, it is a slow, enduring one. And tonight, we will gently walk through it together. Everyday lives of lesbian women in ancient Europe. In pale, pale light of early morning, see yourself making slow progress down the narrow, curving paths of a small village in old Europe. The air is cold and carries a scent of damp earth and softwood, smoke heat drifting lazily from chimneys above low stone cottages and wood-framed houses. The stillness is deep, with only the distant soft rumble of wooden wheels on cobblestones and the soft distant cooing of pigeons homeward to roost. Women begin to stir from their beds, drawn under thick wool blankets frayed and pieced together over years of use. They rise slowly and carefully as they stand to meet the new day with intimate ritual. With each breath they inhale, they scent the turned fresh earth and the lingering smell of dried herbs over the fire. These are homes where seasons serve as the measure of time's passage in steady beats, and where the noise of footsteps upon earthen ground is as predictable as the turning of the sun. You see hands lined with decades of toil, moving with thoughtful purpose, grinding grain on huge stone grinders unmoved in centuries. The scraping rhythm sound mixes with the muffled thrum of turning wheels, spinning thread from soft wool, and the rhythmic thwack of dough being beaten in wooden bowls. The smell of fresh-baked bread begins to waft, curling upwards and filling the air with promise and security. In the midst of such everyday chores, imagine that certain women live not alone, but in shared houses with other women to whom they are most devoted. These existences are not staked out in ritual public or entered on formal roles, but are lives woven into mutual support and silent awareness bonds, forged from shared years of common existence and unspoken camaraderie. Lives lived together side by side, where love is expressed in the smallest gestures. A tap on the arm while fetching water, a knowing glance shared in the quiet of dusk as stars slowly twinkle. Many of these women are either unmarried or widowed in a world that offers them little choice. However, by necessity and desire, they build houses that offer shelter, not only from the chill of the night, but from the loneliness and uncertainty of a world that refuses to acknowledge or identify their love. These communal houses become refuges full of warmth and humor and the soft buzz of conversations exchanged in trust. Imagine the dance of candlelight flickering on plaster walls as darkness falls. The muted rumble of voices softly spoken blends with the pop and crackle of fireplace hearth, where, Bunches of herds dried on strings swing, releasing soft whispers of lavender sage and rosemary scents that speak healing comfort and security. Here, in such close quarters, women build lives full of unspoken promises and gentle compassion, offering each other refuge in the deepest of hours. Outside the home planet can be cruel customs laws, and the rigid codes of decency are not attuned to their love. Rather, suspicion in the form of gossip and judgment is the state of affairs. Threats of accusation could amount to poverty, and so these women learn the art of discretion, guardedly keeping their love behind screens of friendship, social graciousness, and well-turned phrase. Their survival is dependent on the gossamer tension between being seen and not being seen, between being there and being. Unable to speak, their daily routine itself becomes a gesture of silence, resistance, and survival. As women construct their life within the rigid roles they are assigned, they subtly bend the rules through the strength of their relationships. The cycles of shared work, caring for children, taking care of the animals, cooking create a steady heartbeat that propels them through seasons of adversity, loss, and moments of secret happiness. In such lives, woven into the ordinary moments, touch of fingertips as they gather wildflowers in spring, the shared heat of a woolen blanket around shoulders on cool autumn evenings, the soft happiness of sitting together side by side under an expansive dark sky watching stars appear one by one, the laugh over tales told around the fire, the safety of a familiar hand resting lightly on another in sorrow or delight. Women as love relationships with women were commonly acclaimed in poems, letters, and songs that have come down through the centuries, although sometimes the language of love was veiled coding, or, expressed in metaphor, it was real and powerful, enduring time, space, and social expectation. These relationships formed foundations on which women could build lasting friendships that were rich and full-bodied, although they were concealed from the world. Picture the faint ink smudges on fine parchment letters folded and tied with ribbon neatly. The soft words written by a deferent hand speak of hope, longing, and devotion. Interspersed between the lines of formal record are countless stories of women who found each other and built lives of silence, love that sustained them in the face of odds. The rhythm of their lives is relentless and glacial, each day filled with mundane work but punctuated by the presence of deep, emotional bonds. These bonds were lifelines, weaving a network of support, friendship, and love throughout the fabric of their small worlds. Even in moments of loss, hardship, or horror, these women took sustenance in one another, moving forward with strength and dignity. With the seasons went the rhythms of life, but the constancy of friendship. As winter brought bitter cold, women weathered it, crouched in the warmth of hearth light, and soft speech and spring called forth new life and the renewal of gardens and fields that nourished them. These cycles repeated the slow building of their relationships, strengthening over time through a daily practice of tenderness and consideration of each other. Beyond the village, imagine the rest of the world of bazaars, where women huddled to exchange goods, gossip, and share secrets. In the cacophony of the market, their gentle connections would be lost in the noise. But here, too, these women were able to find a moment to pass on a smile, an eye-locking look, a touch that held more meaning than possibly words ever could. Consider the shared work of harvesting berries, or herbs in the surrounding forests and fields, the fresh air filled with the scent of pine and wildflowers, the soft rustle of leaves beneath one's feet, and the gentle susurration of streams. These group outings left space from critical eyes and the freedom for women to chat openly and solidify their relationships without fear. In larger towns or cities, it was more complicated, but even there women created safe spaces. Sometimes these were plain rooms rented in quiet, side streets, or communal workshops, where women spun together yarn, wove together fabric, or created lace. The practicality of their work kept their feet on the ground, giving them routine and purpose, while offering cover for their deeper loyalties. The church and religious life offered both sanctuary and constraint. Convents were places where women could live apart from the bonds of childbearing and marriage, though the vows they took were to bind them into another kind of life. For some, these walls also permitted freedom to develop close sisterhoods and long-term friendships that, in a way, were approximations of love. The delicate art of survival required vigilance and courage. The need to navigate social expectations, legal constraints, and the ever-present threat of exposure meant that women wrote in code. The code of letters, poetry, and common symbols created a secret world where the articulation of feeling could be expressed with delicacy and safety. These stories aren't typically brassy or loud, but they are persistent. Like the persistent pounding of a heart under the surface of the water, they share a human reality that even in times and places of passive love still exists and thrives. With worry, friendship, and quiet commitment, women crafted places where their lives could be full, rich, and deeply linked despite their troubles. In the quiet crevices of villages and homes, these women found ways to express their love without words. A meal shared, cooked lovingly over the fire, became a ritual of love. Stewing gently in a clay pot, the soft cutting of vegetable roots, the scented steam that curled upwards in the cool air. These small rituals of love wove threads of intimacy into the fabric of their days. The considerate arrangement of the table, with simple wooden plates and spoons, was a soft whisper of respect and closeness. A shattered loaf of crusty bread held between hands, the passing of a bowl from hand to hand. The ring of pottery and the soft scrape of knife on wood produced a rhythmic feel like low-pitched talk shared in the warmth of the kitchen. Their laughter blended gently with the crackling fire, a gentle harmony that filled the space. Outside the windows, frost might rim the tops of the glass, or the soft patter of rain fall uninterrupted through bare branches. But inside the houses, the scent of herbs dried over the hearth, mixed with the richness of fresh vegetables and smoked meats. The warm, soft glow of beeswax candles created long, quiet shadows, casting a sanctuary in which love was woven into the fabric of routine ritual. The gardens they tended were also sacred spaces. Here, among herbs and flowers, they cultivated not just sustenance and medicine, but tokens of hope and love: lavender for peace, rosemary for remembrance, violets for loyalty. Each bloom a quiet sign sent in the language of flowers, a secret shared between those who understood. Early morning mist photograph hands working in the land, gently breaking up the earth to plant seeds, spacing out rows of fragile shoots. Their fingers pushed aside dead leaves and stones, and the air was filled with the low thrum of waking insects and the distant call of birds. The process of planting and caring became ritual, a communal one that bound these women not only to the land, but to each other. The fruit seasons created periods of muted celebration. The harvesting in of ripening berries, scented apples, and freshly cut herbs. Filled baskets carried back to the heat of kitchens. There the scent of sweetness blended with earth and smoke, a reminder of the cycle of renewal and growth. These common labors offered time to talk softly, exchange news, and cement bonds under the leafy cover or by the edge of fields. Their attire also showed faint marks of their alliances. Simple embroidered handkerchiefs or woven scarves contained color and design known only by them. A dainty stitch there, a well-placed color here, whispered quietly of community and belonging. In a world where open saying was perilous, such visible signals were lifelines. The soft rustle of the natural dyed fabric moved softly as women went about their daily routine. Threads of blue and green, woven into shawls, or the subtle designs embroidered in aprons, carried meanings like secret languages. Shared clothes could be shared among girlfriends, worn on special occasions, or exchanged as manifestations of love. Every piece carried a history of love and bonding. When winter cold had come into the hearth, fires were the hub of home, and evenings were. Long women sat close together, swapping tales, song, and memories, their voices low and even rising and falling like the wind outside. The jumping firelight illuminated faces etched with care and strength. But beneath the surface was a profound tenderness. The tales told ranged from ancient legends, shared through the decades, to personal memories of joy and sorrow. The cadence of their dialogue was soft and easy, each word timed as if to prolong the moment the warmth of being together, wrapped around them like the thick quilts that pushed out the chill. Outside, the wind can howl or snow can fall silently, but here in these rooms life breathed softly. Children tended to join these families either through kinship or birth adoption. The management of young children gave them a common goal and extended the definition of family beyond what was conventional, laying down the rhythms of the earth, the histories of ancestors. The techniques of weaving or bread making became acts of legacy shared in tenderly passed hands. Imagine the soft touch of a mother's hand, smoothing tangled hair from a child, or the confident instruction of older women guiding younger women in the task of washing wool for spinning. The children's giggles blended with the pop and hiss of fire, and the soft humming of adult voices, creating a rich tapestry of sound full of hope and continuity. These caring relationships created deep roots where love could flourish, even during difficult times. At times, festivals and holy days brought brief relief from everyday prudence. These shared celebrations brought times of music, dancing, and shared meals. The laughter and light footsteps of women dancing in unison to soft melodies had a secret delight. Even here, beneath the watch eyes of the wider community, there could be found small moments of intimacy in the exchanged glances or touching hands. Imagine a midsummer's eve, with bonfires blazing on the riverbank, scent heavy with the perfume of flowers in bloom, and the sound of flutes and drums far away. Women dressed in simple dresses with flower crowns, made by their own hand, dancing gracefully in gentle circles. The glow of torches illuminated their faces in golden hues, and in the exchange of smiles and transitory caresses was an unspoken rebellion against loneliness and fear. But the dangers were ever-present rumors, whispered in marketplaces. The speculative glances of neighbors, the occasional angry outburst from authority figures. These dangers required vigilance at all times. The women built subtle codes of conduct, a hidden language of action and movement to protect themselves and one another. Their fervor had to be concealed, but never lost strength. Suspicion hung like a cloud over many places. Words were carried far on the wind, and a wrong glance could upset the fragile peace. These women became expert at navigating their days with caution, choosing whom to trust and when to remain silent. The strength of their relationships was continually tested, but they toughened up in adversity. Letters were treasured possessions, frequently crumpled and stamped in wax. These letters held words of longing, encouragement, and shared hope. Few have survived, but the delicate papers bear witness to relationships that overcame space and danger. The act of writing itself had been a brave assertion of connection and individual in a world that would have preferred silence. Picture fingers following the fine scribbling of ink on thin vellum, the scent of dried lavender stored within folds. The hope and promise carried in each carefully chosen word. Letters were at times covertly passed hand to hand, borne by trusted riders, or hidden in loads of cloth. They bridged the space between hearts, separated by miles or circumstance, with comfort and companionship. Seasonal change introduced changes and continuities. The cycles of planting and harvesting mirrored the renewal and growth of relationships. The harshness of winter tested endurance to the limit, while spring brought hope and rejuvenation. Each year added layers of history and significance to the lives of these women. Built quietly side by side, the rhythm of the year was broken by harvest and sowing days, celebrations when individuals congregated to exchange the fruits of their labor, and quiet periods when stillness and silence gave space for dreaming and thinking. Through these rhythms, women felt community and the persistent rhythm of companionship. The heritage of such lives is quiet but permanent. Through whispered stories passed down the generations by women and men, poems whispered in the light of candle flames and the steady presence of women who loved beyond expectation. These accounts serve as a reminder that love and friendship always managed to persevere, even where it was most circumscribed. As morning sun climbs higher, imagine these women going out again into their day, their feet sure and firm, their hearts bound together by threads of care, love, and endurance. In their quiet strength, They wove not only their own lives, but the hidden history of human bond over time. Their stories are not triumphant or boastful, but they are persistent, like the subtle rhythm of a heart that goes on beating below the surface. They reveal a human truth that even in times and places of quiet love, there are ways to thrive and flourish. In attention and friendship and unassuming devotion, women made room for their lives to be full, expansive, and richly rooted. Despite the struggle they faced, beyond the reassuring walls of their homes, envision such women traversing the landscapes of earlier Europe. Fields, streams, and woods opened beneath expansive skies. The seasons painted the landscape in varying colors, from the pale green of spring to autumn dark golds and scarlets. Here, too, the cycles of nature mirrored, the steady rhythm of lives woven together in tranquil dedication. In village markets and public squares, women caught moments of connection amidst the cry of peddlers, the scent of new herbs, and the colorful stalls of handmade things. Women exchanged news stories and quiet gestures of friendship, the passing touch of a hand against another, the shared smile across a crowded plaza. These were the threads that tied them to community, even as they lived on the fringes in the larger and smaller cities. There were some women who worked alongside at occupations such as weaving, dyeing, or lace making. The tactile nature of their work offered both sustenance and a kind of refuge. The rhythmic pattern of repetition on the loom, the soft pull of yarn through fingers, the rich colors of dyed cloth grounded them and allowed for furtive conversation and affection. The church offered many-sided shelter and restraint. Convents provided refuge to some women, allowing lives lived outside marriage and motherhood. Although the vows taken bound them to a particular type of life for many, such places were homes where deep friendship and sisterhood developed, sometimes approximating love in its subtle power. These women learned the subtle dance of survival, to travel a thin tightrope between the desire to remain silent and the necessity for attachment. They used coded words, hidden symbols, and measured timing to communicate. Their support systems were quietly spread across villages and countryside. A touch, a look, a word meant something to those who knew how to read between the lines. By decades of hardship and moments of joy, these women survived. Their resilience not only defined their lives, but had an unobtrusive effect on the course of history. Their lives are a reminder that love may flourish even in the places where it has to be clandestine. That beneath the surface level of recorded history exists a rich tapestry of human determination and emotion in wait to be uncovered and honored. Lesbian love in medieval spiritual life. Let us stroll now down the chill, deserted corridors of an abandoned castle, where shadows lie and candlelight dances upon walls chilled with time. The air is dense with aged stone and drying rushes, perfumed with the faintest memory of rosemary, trodden upon by the feet of noble women. Theirs lives full of rites that they did not perform their nights, long and quiet, except for the soft glide of silk and the soft murmur of secrets behind closing doors. Picture two women sitting in front of a tall arched window, filled with the gentle gray light of morning. They are sewing not because they enjoy it, but because they are supposed to. But their hands stroke softly and slowly, not only because of the task, but because of the presence of one another. Theirs is a silence rich with understanding. One woman lowers her needle to tie back a stray lock of hair behind the other's ear, and though the motion is brief, it is with something richer than friendship. These aristocratic women daughters are tied, but not always by hearts. They are watched by governesses and priests, but when the clock rings, late and servants have withdrawn to their own corners of the estate, they tell each other softly and secretive, whispers of dreams they dare not speak. Their words dance like moths around the candle, fragile, delicate, and alive. In a small singing room where firelight makes the wood glow, they sing on the harp and lute. Their voices ring out softly in harmony, one flowing into the next. Now and again, she will place her hand gently on the other's shoulder to adjust position, but the contact remains beyond need. These are the things that time washes away, but they are moments charged with life, with strain, with relating to be deciphered. Now let us proceed through a giant wooden gate and into a convent, deep in wooded hills. The stones are old, the air is thick with incense and rain. Here women live by the bell, by the hour, by the prayer. They go in habits and quiet, but their eyes tell, and their deeds speak truths that no sermon could erase. There in this sacred space, two sisters share a cell, their cots set side by side, so they can hear each other breathe in darkest night. They pray side by side, rise up together, walk quietly in the cloister garden, where the world draws back behind high walls of stone. In these ritual silences, feeling grows not with display, but with permanence. One of the sisters gets sick on a winter evening, her body racked with fever. The other stays by her bedside, all night applying damp cloths to her forehead, singing old lullabies half sung under her breath, soft as pine wind. Their fingers intertwine as if to ground each other to the world. Outside, snow falls, silently dampening sound and softening even illness as brutality. There are reports, however, few of nuns being rebuked for what the church called excessive closeness. One of the documents in the rigid formal Latin of the time charges two women of sleeping too, often in the same bed, of speaking to each other. In a way unseemly, the language is dry, but between them rings a story of closeness too deep to be forgotten. After centuries beyond ritual and stone, we find love living in words told under the light of a fire. In villages tucked between river and tree, women pass on the legend of two girls who fled from their homes and were never seen or heard of again. Some say they became birds. Some say they still roam the woods, leading away those who lose their way through life. These stories survive not because they were put into writing, but because they had to, because they contain truths that could not be spoken out loud. Imagine a grandmother sitting in front of a hearth spinning wool while she chats with her granddaughter about an aunt who never got married but lived with a woman named Ellen for 40 years. All of them together raised goats, baked bread, and sang songs that no one else recalled. They are not referred to as lovers, not as rebels, but as companions, a word that does not eliminate anything the speaker cannot say. In a painted chapel way up in the mountains, a fresco depicts two female saints, their hands almost touching their eyes, locked in perpetual devotion. It is surrounded by symbols of sanctity, but also of flowering vines and gentle doves, details inserted, perhaps by an artist who had known what it was to experience love that the world would not acknowledge. The saints gaze not toward heaven, but into each other's eyes, and in their eyes there is something very human. These moments wait patiently through the years, sown like seeds under stone and snow, to flower in the hearts of those who know how to observe them. They do not bluster, they are not clear, but they are there. They persist in the sweep of a letter, the shape in a stitch, the glance down a chapel aisle, the feeling of presence in an age of silence. Even in prosperity and sanctuary, these women lived warily. Their love had to be hidden behind terms, such as "she is more valuable to me than all the others, or our souls are entwined." No one spoke the word lesbian. There was no term that fitting, yet still love was felt, shared, remembered. Their existence was characterized by their relationships, small and large. A woman might choose to remain in a convent, not merely for her convictions, but to remain near another. A lady in waiting might delay marriage on the pretense of illness or bereavement, but spend her days walking around gardens hand in hand with her closest friend. Such alternatives had the tendency to mask rebellion under the cloak of piety and propriety. Love arrived in the food, shared in the warmth of a mutually wrapped cloak in the form of one's voice gentling when speaking to another. Every choice a gesture of tenderness every day, an unspoken promise to remain near despite society's required silence. This is merely the beginning of their history, a history that continues not in grand structures or big proclamations, but in the soft, steady throb of a life lived thoughtfully and with purposeful intent. These women who had lived behind walls of stone and silence carved out small havens where love could survive, and by doing so, left not history as it is normally recorded, but memory as it is truly experienced. Far away in the close stone walls of convents concealed throughout old Europe, where ivy clambered, painstakingly upworn brick, and time itself moved at a slower rate. There were spaces where women gathered not only in shared belief, but sometimes even in shared love. It was a world lit by flame-leaping oil lanterns, where silence was heavy, and where love frequently masqueraded as piety. The convent, on initial impression, was a haven of piety and seclusion. Its rhythms throughout the day were sounded in the ring of bells, matins in the early darkness, lauds at sunrise, then the soft hum of prayer, gardening, cooking, and needlework through afternoons. But underlying regular routine was an undertone of greater feeling and unobtrusive, closeness generated by proximity, trust, and lack of male supervision for some women. This environment provided not only protection from the outside world, but space to explore and define relationships elsewhere that would have been repressed or outlawed. Within these sacred walls, women friendships could grow deep and full, nurtured by side-by-side study and labor and prayer, shared cell, clasped hand around the night psalms, or mutual tending of a garden. All were points of contact in a language of friendship without speech. These were relationships often referred to as spiritual or sisterly, and many of them were doubtless, but in the fervent, quiet among chanted phrases and sidelong glances over candle-slit manuscripts, something warmer sometimes took root. Historians have now come to believe that some of these bonds were romantic or even sensual in nature, although such words were purposely avoided in the records of the time. A nun might call another her soul friend or her dear sister in Christ words which, although phrased in ecclesiastical terms, express the intensity of emotion involved. In an age when emotional expressiveness between women was accorded more room than between opposite sexes, the line between platonic love and something else was blurred at times with purpose. Manuscripts and convent letters in medieval periods sometimes do exist with small, poignant traces of such passion. There may be a psalter containing the dedication of prayers to a fellow sister most precious among women, or a devotional verse manuscript where one nun is praising another grace, wisdom, and beauty with language as rich as rich, that of courtly love. Such writing never ever says anything straightforwardly. In fact, to say anything would be to risk causing suspicion or censure. But between the lines, there is the beat of desire. Exterior observers, especially male clergy, consistently failed or said they missed the underlying meaning of these attachments. When they did catch on, they generally explained them religiously or dismissed them altogether, and perhaps that was a coping as well as a neglect. The lesbian love invisibility in these settings gave it a strange kind of armor. Where male-female love might have raised an eyebrow, the loves of two women could be hiding in broad daylight beneath the guise of very conventions that delegitimized them. The layout of these convents themselves allowed for closeness. Dormitories were sometimes shared 2 or more women in a cell. Work was shared, whether baking bread, copying the holy texts, or cultivating herbs in the cloister garden. Long hours together bred familiarity that could develop into something less than passion, but no less enduring. In these routines, rhythm a life in harmony with natural cycles and sacred calendar. Both, and in that rhythm relationships, were established in silence, fostered by gestures more eloquent than speech. A freshly mended robe carefully folded, a deeply cherished psalm sung softly together. Through the watches, a pressed flower tucked between pages of a prayer book. These were gestures not of rebellion, but of love adjusted to the moment and the place. At times the nuns wrote of mystic union with the divine, a nearness to Christ conceived in terms of richly bodily language. But one couldn't help but ask between the lines if the language of sacred longing also reflected worldly love. In one vision of the 12th century recounted by a nun at Rhineland, she was enveloped by a brilliant feminine form of holiness. Whether or not that vision was symbolic or divine, or perhaps influenced by intense emotional longing, it is a reminder that medieval spirituality was not always bodily disconnected from it, could be bodily sensual and emotionally intense. Such words passed unnoticed by the secular world, engulfed in the assumed innocence of convent life. But the nuns living these gentle lives were not so naive. They felt the charge in a glance, the comfort in another sob on cold winter nights, the deep pain of loss when one was sent to another abbey or died. These were real feelings and written onto the quotidian fabric of holy habit. The Church, though frequently wary of anything it felt was unnatural, did not always see or admit love between women. Unlike sodomy, which carried both religious and legal penalties, being relationships between women were more difficult to define and so more difficult to prosecute. This left an interesting space in which such love could thrive hidden, but not necessarily pursued. Still there was danger lurked still. There are few accounts of church investigations into improper behavior among nuns, though they are rare and generally indeterminate. A 14th century Italian instance speaks of 2 women found in improper closeness, though no names are preserved, and the sanction was expulsion, not excommunication. Imprecision of language here is important. It provided room for both denial and discretion. To the participants, however, threats were real. But even in the face of such dangers, these women managed to survive. In prayer in verse, in the secluded niches of garden and cloister, they created spaces for identification. Some endured as pairs for decades, interred in side-by-side graves, their headstones only speaking of sisterhood, but suggesting perhaps the existence of something more. Some lived their lives in a silent yearning, fed by the strength of a shared look or a remembered hand. And still centuries later, their presence still lingers, not boisterously, not in headlines or monuments, but in the forgotten edges of history, in the worn stone of abbey walls, and the by-hand reproduced manuscripts preserved in monasteries and libraries, in the names of women lost to time, but recalled by each other. As darkness falls about you, now remember the silence of such a convent, the soft rustle of wool shoes on worn flagstone, the scent of beeswax and rosemary, the leisurely turn of a page in candlelight. 2 women pause at the same verse, eyes brushing briefly. Nothing is said. Nothing needs to love in its quietest form has always found a way to be there, even in the most sacred and silent of environments. In the long hush of candlelit evenings, the quiet courage of women took form, not in grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but in the simplest acts of presence. Their strength was expressed in long walks, along wooded paths where boots pressed gently into damp earth and birds whispered among the trees. Their eyes met in silence, and the shared breath of the forest became a haven. A nod, a glance, a moment of stillness, these were their declarations of love. In the privacy of old kitchens with timber beams low and soot lining the hearth, they stirred pots of bubbling porridge and kneaded bread with hands weathered by labor, yet still soft with care. Each movement was deliberate, imbued with intention. A touch to the shoulder, a brush of the hand across the flowery table. These were moments of connection, quiet but binding. Some found work as midwives, healers, or attendants to wealthier households, giving them a unique freedom of movement and independence that allowed pockets of time and space for their hidden affections. Within herb gardens and beneath eaves thick with ivy, they exchanged whispers and secrets under the guise of work. Rosemary bundles passed from one hand to another carried more than scent and utility. They held messages, memory, meaning in religious convents where the rigid discipline of the church sought to strip the self away. Some women found an unexpected sanctuary. A cloister could be a prison or a refuge, depending on who you asked, for a pair of souls whose eyes lingered longer than allowed. A shared life of service sometimes offered the safest place to grow close. Bound by ritual and the long days of prayer, their bond could flourish in the stillness of dawn-lit chapels and the warmth of shared blankets on bitter nights. Each stitch in the embroidery hoop, each line of scripture, copied by candlelight, was a meditation, a tether to something deeper. Within these quiet sanctuaries, some found a form of companionship that was unspoken but deeply understood. Even when the rules were strict and punishment loomed, there remained a corner of the soul that no authority could fully reach. a space where feeling bloomed unmarked by the ink of confession. Outside the cloistered walls, women in villages and towns forged alliances of another kind. They became godmothers to each other's children, or acted as widowed aunts, living together in practicality and shared economy to all outward appearances. Yet within the walls of their homes, love simmered in the quiet spaces, between chores, between expectations. There are stories half remembered passed from grandmother to granddaughter of two women who kept house together for 50 years, of a midwife who returned always to the same village, despite better offers elsewhere, of a healer who left no children, but whose belongings were claimed with tears by a woman known only as her friend. These fragments are threads, and when woven together, they form a soft tapestry that still holds warmth today. In towns where markets bustled and eyes watched with suspicion, the women developed their own systems of trust. Baker knew not to question when a loaf was delivered with a sprig of thyme tucked into the wrapping. The washerwoman hummed the same tune each time a safe meeting place was needed. A nod across the courtyard, a shared line from a song, a thread of colored yarn. These were their tools. Winter brought both danger and comfort. With everyone drawn inside, there was less scrutiny from the outside world and more time for warmth shared indoors. Two women might take turns telling stories by the fire, rocking a cradle with one foot, or mending worn clothing together. Their closeness might be explained away by necessity, but it carried the unspoken pulse of something more. And yet the danger was never far. One misstep, one word overheard, one neighbor too curious, could unravel everything. So they became experts in discretion, masters of layered meanings and subtle glances. Their love was written in the steam, on the window pane, in the way one stood protectively near the other, in the way silence was held not awkwardly, but comfortably, like a familiar shawl around the shoulders. As the seasons turned, their love followed the rhythms of the earth. Spring brought hope and new beginnings. Summer offered moments of freedom. Autumn taught patience and endurance. Winter asked for resilience. And through it all they stayed steady, like the tides of a quiet river carving a path, unnoticed by most yet permanent in its persistence. There were some who dared to write verses. Their poems, hidden in recipe books or folded inside hymnals, carried language both ordinary and sacred. An ode to the scent of hair, freshly washed, or the feel of fingertips brushing across flax linen. These lines were never read aloud, but they were cherished, a reminder that even in silence, the heart speaks fluently. Travel, when it occurred, brought both risk and possibility. Letters were folded tightly and passed through trusted hands. Some included pressed flowers, others only a few lines, but each one was a lifeline, a tether across miles, a promise that someone was waiting with kind eyes and open arms, a declaration that no law, no church, no custom could fully erase what was felt. As old age approached, some of these women settled into a kind of gentle rhythm, their days filled with routine, and their companionship deepened by time. They might sit side by side on a bench, watching the wind ripple across fields. Their conversation no longer needed to be hidden, because it no longer needed words at all. It was carried in the rhythm of shared silence and the easy lean of shoulder against shoulder. It did not leave monuments or ledgers full of titles and names. Instead, they left gardens that grew back each spring and quilts, stitched with patient hands and children who remembered being loved. Their legacy is found in the spaces. They inhabited the quiet they carried and the lives they nurtured against all odds. And as the stars wheeled overhead above fields and forests that held their footprints, we remember them not as figures erased by time, but as the keepers of quiet, truths whose stories still live in the wind, the firelight, the shadow, and the song of history, and silent of spaces. By the light of a narrow stained glass window, two women bent low over a piece of cloth, one guiding the needle, the other holding the fabric steady. The room was quiet, except for the rhythm of the needle sliding through wool and the muffled crackle of the hearth behind them. They sat shoulder to shoulder, bodies nearly touching, speaking in the soft code of shared silence. Their eyes met at times not with fear, but with a solemn knowledge of what could not be, spoken aloud in this world of rigid roles and careful surveillance. In the small towns where watchful eyes lurked behind every shutter, and every neighbor became a scribe of gossip, women found corners in which affection could unfold. The bakery oven offered one such sanctuary. The baker's daughter, rising early before the town stirred to life, met the potter's apprentice who carried her wares from the kiln in the hills. Together they warmed bread and hearts, side by side, kneading with the same rhythm that pulsed quietly in their chests. In these simple labors, where proximity was necessary, they allowed stolen moments to pass unnoticed by others. The gardens also told stories, stories that did not need to be written to be known, herbs that aided ailments shared between women, whose closeness went beyond care. Thyme and mugwort picked with purpose, not only to heal bodies, but to continue. A tradition whispered from mother to daughter, aunt to niece, sister to sister. Women who planted together sowed seeds of understanding in furrows deeper than soil. Alone among rows of leeks and sage, two women bent over a small patch, exchanging looks that said more than words ever could. In the villages, women crafted lace-embroidered altar cloths and prepared linens for marriage beds and funeral rites. In these domestic arts, passed from one generation to the next, subtle gestures and touches became languages of their own. One elderly woman who had never married taught younger women the softness of linen, the strength of thread, the patience of the weave. Her hands lingered with quiet reverence on the cloth she offered her student, and those who watched suspected, but never said. Her name was remembered not with scandal, but with a hush that veiled respect. Songs too carried hidden meaning. Tunes sung during harvest festivals and winter feasts gave voice to feelings that could not be spoken directly. Folk melodies told of two maidens who fled into the woods, never to be seen again, of a wise woman who lived with her companion on the edge of the forest and brewed potions for lovers of all kinds. Verses passed mouth to mouth, slightly altered with each telling, cloaked private truths in metaphor and myth. Inside the cloistered walls of women's spaces, from convents to village gatherings, the rules of the outside world softened. A woman who chose never to marry could find acceptance if she busied herself with God, or charity, or endless weaving. A pair of women who lived together for decades in the same home were pitied as lonely spinsters or admired for their independence, rarely questioned beyond that. These explanations served as shields, allowing affections to exist unchallenged, if still unrecognized. Some found sanctuary in pilgrimage. Two women leaving behind small towns too tight for love's quieter varieties would walk together to shrines dressed in travelers' cloaks. Faces ruddy from the road, hands brushing by accident or intention. They shared bread, water, and their thin sleeping mats, whispering dreams beside abbey walls in languages softer than prayer. The open road offered not only holy redemption, but a chance to escape the chains of community judgment. Not all were so lucky. Some stories end in fire and exile, in silence too deep for history to catch. Their names do not linger in records. Their faces are absent from stained glass. Their lives remain beneath the surface, like roots growing in the dark. Yet even their silence tells us something of survival, of the determination to find connection in places where it was forbidden. The shared hearths of old Europe glowed with more than just firelight. They held secrets traded in glances and gestures, in lullabies and herbs, and the stitching of hems. Women, bound by expectations, still found ways to express care and intimacy, sometimes within the language of devotion, sometimes through the labor of daily life, and sometimes only in dreams. Theirs was a love that passed in the in-between spaces, in the pauses between prayers, in the flicker of candlelight behind closed shutters. As one woman passed a spindle to another, her fingers lingered, their touch so brief, yet so full of memory, that it held the weight of years. The spindle spun between them, catching not just wool, but trust, resilience, and a legacy that, though unspoken, refused to vanish entirely. Threads of survival laid into every turn of fiber and flicker of eye. A quiet revolution made of touch and tenderness. Through fields, cloisters, hearths, and song, the survival of love between women became a testament not only to longing, but to the cleverness, the patience, the strength required to live within and beyond the rules of their time. It was not always bold, it was not always safe, but it endured quietly, as steady as breath, beyond the daily labors and rituals. Lived the stories of shared dreams and whispered plans. Each evening, beneath the quiet glow of oil lamps, women would speak in voices low and soft, weaving hopes into the fabric of their lives. Dreams of futures where affection could be shown openly, where hands could be held, without fear, where love would no longer hide in shadows, but blossom in the light. These wishes passed from lips to eager ears, becoming a secret currency of courage and connection. In the quiet moments before sleep, the touch of a hand on a cheek or the brush of fingers against a sleeve carried meaning far beyond words. Two women lying side by side shared warmth that spoke of comfort, safety, and a bond that needed no announcement. To the world outside, their closeness was invisible, but within the walls of their shared room, their hearts beat a steady rhythm of belonging. The seasons brought their own cadence to these lives. Spring, renewal was met with fresh flowers picked to adorn hair and windows, symbols of new beginnings and quiet promise. Summer days were spent gathering herbs and berries under the watchful eyes of the sun, while autumn ushered in the harvest and preparations for cold months ahead. Winter's long nights were softened by the closeness of bodies and the glow of firesides, where stories were told and songs hummed like gentle prayers. The passing of time was marked by small but significant gestures. A ribbon tied at the wrist, a scarf wrapped a certain way, a token passed beneath a shawl. Each of these acts carried layers of meaning understood only by those who shared the secret language of affection. In a world where words could betray them, women learned to speak with glances, touches, and the silent poetry of everyday care. Even in moments of grief and loss, love endured, like when one woman tended the wounds of her companion or held her hand through fever and pain. When the chill of death touched a household, the sorrow was softened by the presence of another who knew the heart. Intimately, the rituals of mourning were shared quietly. A hand pressed to a forehead, a whispered prayer, a flower laid gently beside a closed eye. Friendships blossomed and deepened into lifelong partnerships. Some women pledged to journey through life side by side, forming families that defied traditional structures together. They raised children, taught skills, and preserved histories. These households became havens where love and labor intertwined, creating legacies that spanned generations. Though the world beyond could be harsh and unforgiving within these intimate spheres, women cultivated resilience and hope. They wrote letters filled with coded words, painted images with brush and thread, and sang songs whose meanings echoed across time. These acts of creation were declarations of existence and defiant small beacons shining through the fog of ignorance and prejudice. And so the story of these women unfolds not in grand monuments, but in the whispered legacies carried in the hearts of those who remember. Their lives remind us that love finds a way in the quiet spaces between fear and hope, between silence and song. A love that endures, still as steady as breath, as constant as the turning of the seasons. Imagine now the hush of a late autumn evening, the cool air carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. Two women sit together by a hearth, their hands intertwined their faces. Illuminated by the flickering flame, the world beyond their window remains unaware of the depth of their bond. But here, in this moment, time stands still. Love is present and whole. This love, this quiet resistance, this weaving of lives and hearts, is a testament to the strength of women, to the power of connection, to the unyielding human desire to be seen, to be known, to be loved. And as the stars emerge, one by one in the deepening night sky, their light falls gently on the hidden histories, shining softly in the darkness, ready to be remembered and honored once more. As twilight falls over old villages and convents, soft light flickers within quiet walls. A hidden story of love and resilience lives on in whispered glances and gentle touches. Though forgotten by many histories, These women built lives full of meaning and hope. Love was found in small acts, care and quiet strength woven into daily life. Songs hummed in work carried secret messages, and hands embroidered cloth with symbols of courage. Each stitch a silent vow that love endures even in dark times. Children learned love through kindness and respect. Growing with a quiet strength that promised freedom, love was a steady flame warming hearts through cold nights and hard days. Looking back, we see courage and softness and power in gentle bonds. Their love was both rebellion and sanctuary, proof that hearts seek connection beyond fear. Imagine now those women walking among wildflowers, carrying a history of love. Lived fully even if unseen, a love whispered in stolen moments in quiet spaces where souls meet. This is their legacy of grace, strength, and tenderness. A reminder that love always finds a way, even in the quietest corners. Hidden lives of lesbian women in medieval communities. In the soft glow of morning light, imagine a village waking slowly in the folds of medieval Europe. The scent of dew-kissed earth mingles with the faint aroma of freshly baked bread and the chatter of neighbors greeting the day. Women emerge from humble cottages, stepping into routines carved by seasons and necessity. Each movement carries the weight of generations' lives, shaped by hands both gentle and strong. The rhythm of daily labor weaves a quiet song through the streets and fields. The sun rises, gradually spilling gold across thatched roofs and cobbled lanes. The air is cool, but carries promise of warmth soon to come. As smoke curls upward from chimneys and the first birds take flight, the village begins to stir. In gardens beneath windows, herbs nod gently in the breeze. Their leaves glistening with morning moisture, wildflowers burst in soft clusters. Along fence lines and hedgerows adding color to the tapestry of earth and sky. Among these daily rhythms, there exist stories, often overlooked lives, lived quietly yet fully within the fabric of community, where love and companionship took many forms. Some women chose paths, less visible yet rich with connection and care. They crafted lives from the threads of shared experience, weaving bonds both tender and enduring. These bonds took shape in whispered words, stolen glances, and the silent language of presence. In narrow alleys and open markets, women exchanged not only goods, but glances and small tokens of affection. A basket of wildflowers offered at dawn, a shared cup of spiced wine in the evening. These gestures spoke volumes in a language known only to those who lived it. In the marketplace, the colors and sounds create a backdrop for encounters brief and charged with meaning. The feel of a hand brushing against another, the steady gaze held just a moment longer. Within households, women built networks of support and mutual aid. Neighbors shared skills tending gardens, weaving cloth, and caring for children. These daily acts became threads weaving together lives strengthened by trust and understanding. The cooking of meals, the mending of clothes, the storytelling by fireside. All these moments carried quiet acts of love and devotion. Bonds were reinforced with every shared burden lightened, and every joy celebrated together. At times, women formed enduring partnerships, not marked by ceremony, but by deep loyalty and shared life. Their homes were sanctuaries, where laughter mingled with sorrow, where burdens were halved and joys multiplied. Even in a world that spoke little of such love, it was present in quiet certainty. These partnerships shaped communities, offering strength and stability, often passing unnoticed, yet deeply felt. Life was not without challenge. For these women's suspicion often lingered like a shadow. Whispered rumors might follow them along winding paths, yet their resilience turned adversity into a quiet defiance. Love was both shield and sword in the face of judgment. Each step forward was a delicate balance between visibility and discretion. The careful navigation of social expectations required wisdom, courage, and a steadfast heart. The marketplace buzzed with life, and beneath its hum small moments of tenderness found refuge. A fleeting touch on an arm, a glance held, a heartbeat longer than usual. Here in the openness of everyday life, hidden bonds were woven into the very air. The laughter of children playing nearby, the calls of vendors, Hawking layers all form the lively backdrop to connections, both fragile and fierce. As the sun climbed higher, the village thrummed with energy. Women moved with purpose, carrying water, fetching herbs, tending fires. Their strength was not always visible, but it shaped the world around them in ways both subtle and profound. The labor of hands skilled in many crafts, the care given without complaint, these were the foundations upon which life itself depended. Imagine now a quiet evening gathering women, seated in a circle sharing stories, songs, and secrets. Their voices rise and fall in soothing cadence, each word a thread in a tapestry of belonging. In these moments, the ordinary becomes sacred and connection blossoms. The flickering light of a single candle casts shadows that dance softly upon faces marked by time and experience. Conversations weave through laughter and silence alike. The sharing of memories long held close, the recounting of hopes yet to be fulfilled. All are carried gently on the breath of night, binding those present in a circle of trust and affection. These gatherings become havens where the weight of the outside world is momentarily lifted, replaced by warmth, understanding, and quiet joy. Beyond the village, other women find refuge in the embrace of the natural world. Walking through woods along riverbanks or resting beneath ancient trees, they discover spaces where love can be expressed without fear. The soft rustle of leaves, the murmur of water, and the songs of birds create a symphony that soothes the heart and stirs the soul. Paths worn smooth by countless footsteps tell stories of journeys both physical and emotional. Pilgrimages to distant shrines offer escape and hope, a chance to leave behind constraints and find renewal and shared purpose. Along dusty roads and over hills, women travel side by side, carrying more than burdens. They carry each other. In quiet homes, fireside conversations reveal layers of meaning in words spoken and unspoken. A touch on a hand, the exchange of a glance, the brushing of hair, each small gesture becomes a sacred act. The world beyond may demand silence, but within these walls, love is spoken fluently in the language of presence. Though the days are filled with toil and care, there are moments of lightness and laughter, shared between women. Those moments become memories cherished as treasures kept close to the heart. They remind us that even in times of hardship, the human spirit seeks connection, warmth, and joy. This is the hidden life of women who loved each other in the margins of medieval Europe. Lives marked by courage, tenderness, and the enduring power of companionship. Where history remains silent, their hearts continue to speak. Through the ages, their stories echo, quietly carried on the winds of time, waiting patiently to be heard and understood. As sunlight filters softly through the branches of towering oaks, the village stirs with quiet purpose. Women move like gentle currents, weaving through the fabric of daily life. Each step is measured, deliberate, shaped by the needs of hearth and home. The morning tasks call them forward, yet beneath the surface runs a current of secret longings and tender connections. The air hums with the sound of footsteps on worn paths, the murmur of voices blending with the rustle of leaves, and the distant call of birds signaling the start of a new day. The world seems to hold its breath, balanced on the edge of possibility, where stories old and new intertwine. Beneath the endless sky, the scent of freshly turned earth mingles with the sweetness of blooming flowers and the faint aroma of wood smoke drifting from chimneys. In this gentle dawn light, the world seems paused on the edge of possibility, of that moment suspended between sleep and wakefulness, where dreams still linger and the promise of connection hangs softly in the air. The soft touch of a breeze carries whispers of stories, untold of love, blossoming quietly against the weight of expectation and silence in the weaving rooms. Fragrant with flax and wool, hands work steadily, turning threads into cloth. Their fingers dance over fibers spun by those who came before, each thread a link in an unbroken chain, binding past and present. The soft murmur of voices mingles with the rustle of fabric, creating a symphony of work and companionship. Here, women share stories of hope, sorrow, and hidden desires. Their words carried in the rhythm of weaving, the cadence of shuttle and loom telling tales as old. As time itself, the room glows with the warmth of the hearth and the glow of shared purpose weaving together. Hearts and histories in the silent language of touch. The walls echo with laughter and sighs as hands move with practiced grace, weaving not only cloth, but bonds of friendship and trust. Between the threads lie memories, shared secrets exchanged in glances fleeting, yet full of meaning. The light through narrow windows casts patterns of gold and shadow upon the floor, where dust motes dance in the warmth. A child peeks shyly from a doorway, drawn by the gentle hum of community and belonging. The atmosphere holds the sacredness of shared spaces, where love is nurtured beyond words and guarded by the tender watchfulness of kindred spirits. Along narrow lanes, children play in sun-dappled patches, chasing shadows and laughter. Their innocent games echo the deeper play of hearts, seeking comfort and closeness. Though words may be guarded, gestures speak volumes. The clasp of a hand, the brush of a cheek, the glance held just a moment longer. These small moments become acts of rebellion against a world that demands silence. The playground of youth becomes the stage for the unspoken drama of affection and hope, where futures are imagined and courage is born. The laughter mingles with the rustle of leaves, creating a melody that carries the promise of freedom and belonging. The village well gathers women in the heat of midday, where buckets are filled and gossip exchanged. Eyes sparkle with knowing as tailies are spun, weaving threads of connection across the community. In these moments, women read the language of subtle glances and coded phrases, discovering companions in the most unexpected places. Bonds form quietly, nurtured by shared understanding and the courage to exist authentically. The water carried home nourishes more than bodies. It feeds the roots of friendship and solidarity that anchor lives amidst uncertainty. The rhythmic creak of the well pump echoes the heartbeat of a community, woven together by trust, resilience, and shared stories. Amid fields golden with grain and gardens lush with herbs, women labor side by side, planting and harvesting. The earth yields its gifts generously, and in return women offer care and reverence. The shared rhythm of the seasons mirrors the cycles of love and loss that define their lives. Together, they sow seeds not only of sustenance, but of solidarity and hope. Their hands work the soil with reverence, tracing ancient patterns handed down through generations in every seed. A prayer in every harvest, a celebration of life. The sun bathes the fields in a warm embrace, while the gentle hum of insects adds its song to the chorus of life. Thriving beneath the watchful eyes of the sky, the buzz of bees mingles with the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of songbirds, creating a chorus of nature intertwined with human endeavor. Underneath the wide open sky, stories are exchanged alongside the sweat of labor hearts, beat in quiet harmony, marking time to the eternal dance of growth and renewal. The soil holds memory deep and fertile, nourishing both body and spirit, binding the women to the land and to each other in unspoken covenant. The seasons turn in endless cycles, weaving the fabric of life, where love endures hidden yet unbroken. As shadows lengthen, the village gathers around hearth fires, where stories take flight. Flames flicker, illuminating faces etched with wisdom and resilience. The songs sung carry the weight of memory and the promise of tomorrow. Melodies speak of love that transcends the spoken word, weaving a tapestry of belonging that enfolds all who listen. The flicker of firelight casts dancing shapes upon stone walls, echoing the movement of lives lived boldly yet discreetly beneath the watchful eyes of the world. The warmth of the fire wraps around those gathered like a silent embrace, holding safe the fragile beauty of affection found in the quiet moments between dusk and night. In the glow of evening warmth, voices rise in gentle harmony, weaving threads of comfort and courage. Each story a seed, planted in the fertile ground of collective memory. Tales of forbidden love whispered across time, carried in the music of voices soft yet unyielding. The night embraces these moments, holding them tenderly, as if safeguarding the fragile beauty of love found in hidden places. The songs become prayers, the stories become shields, and the shared presence becomes a sanctuary where hearts can beat freely without fear. In secret chambers hidden beneath ordinary walls, women write letters sealed with wax. Their words are poems of longing and devotion, disguised in metaphors and ancient symbols, each line a thread reaching across. Distance binding hearts, separated by circumstance. Yet their voices ring clear through the silence, proclaiming a love as enduring as stone. The fragile parchment carries the weight of emotion, the careful script a testament to resilience and hope. Their letters traverse the shadows, bridging the gap between solitude and connection. The ink flows like whispered promises carried across time and space, defying erasure and neglect. The quiet defiance of these women shapes the very air they breathe. Their love is a flame burning steady, despite winds of suspicion and scorn. In the marketplace, in the fields, in the solitude of their rooms, they claim small victories, asserting their right to connection and joy without apology or shame. Their courage weaves an invisible tapestry that holds them safe and strong amid adversity. The silent power of their presence transforms ordinary spaces into sanctuaries of belonging. Their lives become quiet revolutions, a testament to the enduring human spirit and the unyielding need for love and connection. Imagine now the soft hush of twilight settling over the village, the sky painted in hues of rose and lavender as stars begin their silent watch. Women draw close in the warmth of shared spaces, the tender touch of a hand, the comfort of a presence cherished beyond words. This is the sacred sanctuary of love lived quietly, fiercely, and without surrender. The evening air hums with unspoken promises and the gentle rhythm of hearts beating in time beneath the vast expanse of night. The world holds its breath listening to the sacred song sung in whispers and glances, woven through the fabric of everyday life. These lives once hidden now emerge as whispers carried on the wind, reminders of resilience and hope. Their stories invite us to look closer, listen deeper, and honor the courage it takes to love in the shadows. Where history once left gaps, now voices rise, weaving a richer, fuller tapestry of human connection. Their legacy lives on in the quiet strength passed from hand to hand, in the tenderness exchanged beneath open skies, and in the soft glow of dawn and dusk. A testament to the enduring power of love that refuses to be silenced. Through fields, forests, cottages, and firesides, the spirit of these women moves like a gentle breeze touching all who open their hearts to remember. Their lives are woven into the fabric of time, threads of courage, compassion, and quiet rebellion that shimmer beneath the surface of recorded history. Each story a beacon, lighting the way for those who come after a call to embrace love in all its forms, with open arms and fearless hearts. So as the village settles into night and the stars wheel overhead, know that in the spaces between shadows and light, the hearts of women who loved one another beat steady, strong, and true. Their presence is felt in every whispered secret, every lingering glance, and every hand held close, a sacred song of connection and belonging that echoes through the ages, carrying with it the promise of a world where love needs no hiding. The world shifts slowly as twilight settles across the rooftops and narrow lanes of the quiet village, the last of the golden light slipping behind the rolling hills and casting long shadows that stretch across doorways and courtyards. The air cools gently, brushing against worn stone and weathered wood, and within this descending calm there lingers the scent of cooked lentils, herbs crushed beneath careful footsteps, and the faint aroma of beeswax candles, flickering in simple homes where women move softly through the hush of evening. Their movements deliberate their presence, shaping the stillness, with a grace passed down through years of practice and persistence. Within these walls, time seems to stretch and fold in on itself, and in the gentle glow of the hearth, lives are shared through gestures so small they might vanish, unnoticed by any observer, but to those who live them, they carry the weight of entire lifetimes. A glance held during the washing of hands, a shared silence during mending a brush of fingers as one offers a cup of water. These moments pass without witness, but they are recorded in the heart, in the slow rhythm of daily devotion that does not require recognition to be real. In one quiet dwelling, Two women prepare for sleep their movements. A mirror of habit and care one folds. Woolen blankets with practiced fingers, the other tends the embers in the hearth, coaxing warmth. Into the clay walls their words are few, but their understanding is vast. The silence between them is not. Empty but full of memory and presence, as the fire glows dim and the room darkens. They settle beside one another, the comfort of shared space wrapping around them, like the blankets that shield them from the chill. Outside in the fading light, others move as well. Women gathering firewood along the forest edge, returning home with baskets. Balanced on strong hips or knotted shawls, pulled tighter against the breeze. A neighbor calls softly from a doorway, her voice warm with invitation and shared stories. Begin again, over cups of steaming broth or hands. Busy with spinning and sewing, the companionship forged in these evening hours weaves the fabric of resilience. A fabric invisible to those who look only for power or wealth, yet stronger than any fortress. Not all lived openly. Some stories hid beneath layers of necessity and caution. The world did not always look kindly upon bonds that deviated from expectation, and so women often wrapped their truths in quiet, acts of affection preserving their loves in secrecy and subtlety, while the world watched only the surface in this concealment. However, grew a strength unlike any other one, forged in sacrifice and sustained by the certainty that love, even when unseen, has value that cannot be erased. Among the trees where paths meander beyond the reach of watchful eyes, two women meet near a stream, their voices hushed, their faces bright with recognition. They do not speak at first, only share the silence and the sound of water rushing over smooth stone. They sit together, hands close, but not touching, yet the air between them pulses with everything they cannot say. They speak instead of herbs that ease fever or the stubborn vines in the garden, and within those words rests an entire language, understood only by them, a language shaped by longing and loyalty. Even the monasteries, where silence was kept and discipline ruled, were not immune to the quiet flicker of connection within convent walls. Women shared lives not only in prayer, but in labor, in study, in the intimate rituals of care and support. A novice might find comfort in the touch of her mentor, a gaze held too long across the refectory, the brushing of shoulders in narrow passageways. Here, too, were bonds that shaped hearts and lingered beyond the walls. Of any chapel, they wrote letters in ink made from soot and wine, tucked dried petals. Between pages whispered hymns into each other's ears as the bell called them to sleep. Elsewhere in the countryside, women lived on the edge of villages or deep within forests, their cottages tucked among brambles and tall grasses. There they healed the sick, gathered mushrooms and brewed teas, with hands that knew the language of roots and rain, and in these spaces free from the weight of constant. Eyes' love grew wild and fierce as the trees surrounding them. Women found one another and shaped homes where they were no longer required to hide their affections beneath veils of pretense or caution. The turning of the seasons brought change, but the bonds endured through winter frost and summer haze, through storms that shook the roof beams and festivals that painted the streets in garlands and song. There were dances where women found excuses to linger near one another, their fingers grazing as they passed bowls of stew or wreaths of wildflowers in spring processions, where eyes met and smiles were shared beneath the gaze of saints carved in stone. The rituals of the year gave moments of closeness woven into celebration. Sometimes, a woman would travel perhaps with a caravan of merchants or among pilgrims heading to a distant shrine, and along the way she might find companionship in another traveler, someone who shared her weariness, and wonder their steps falling into rhythm as they crossed valleys and ridges. Their stories offered over shared bread by the roadside, and though the journey might end in parting, its memory stayed alive, a thread stitched into the cloth of her days. Letters were written two-folded and hidden tucked into pockets, or the linings of cloaks, messages carried between hands that understood their value without need for explanation, sometimes written in riddles or shared symbols, other times in simple phrases that meant nothing to others, but everything to the ones who waited, who hoped, who remembered. In the small hours of the night, when the village slept and only the night birds stirred, there were women who lay awake beside one another, their hearts steady and still in the dark, hands entwined beneath blankets' feet, brushing like leaves in the breeze. They did not need words. Only breath, only presence in those hours. Time loosened its grip, and the world grew soft and kind. These were not grand romances sung by bards or painted on the walls of cathedrals, but they were no less powerful. Their strength lay in their endurance, in their quiet defiance of the stories the world tried to tell, in their refusal to vanish, despite being ignored. As dawn approached and the sky shifted once more to pale gray, women rose again to begin their work, to walk once more among neighbors and kin, to knead bread, to milk goats, to gather herbs from the hedgerow. And as they moved through their day, the memory of those night hours remained a soft echo in the rhythm of their hands, in the set of their shoulders, in the way their gaze lingered just a moment longer than expected. This was their world, not always kind, but often beautiful, a world made livable by the quiet strength of women who loved one another and made homes in places the history books forgot, who carved space from silence and built something enduring, not in monuments, but in the heartbeat of everyday life. They were not nameless, not truly, for they were known to one another in ways deeper than any scroll or chronicle could record. And even now their legacy remains carried, not in statues or relics, but in the memory of touch, in the scent of herbs, in the hush of twilight, where truth still breathes. There is a stillness that settles over the hillside beyond the village, where the trees gather close and the path grows narrow and fading. And in this hush, you can find two figures walking side by side, the hem of one cloak, brushing against the edge of the other, their steps quiet and measured, their pace slow, as though they do not wish to arrive too soon. The light through the branches is filtered like honey, through cloth golden and soft, and the air holds the scent of crushed leaves and old bark, and the last warmth of the sun clinging to the earth before it lets go. They do not speak, and they do not need to, for their walk has its own rhythm, like the turning of a spindle or the beating of a heart. And in that rhythm there is knowing a shared pattern that has repeated many evenings before, and will again and again for as long as time allows. And in this repetition lies comfort, and in comfort lies safety, and in safety lies love. Though none of these words are ever said aloud, for the women who walk here know that words sometimes do too much, and sometimes do too little, and sometimes say things that are already understood without ever needing to be named. At the crest of the hill there is a flat stone worn smooth by generations, who sat and rested and watched the village below breathe its small quiet life. And the two women pause here, one settling first, then the other, and they do not face each other, but sit side by side, gazing out at the roofs that catch the last of the light and the slow curl of chimney, smoke, and the narrow paths that wind like thread through cloth, between cottages and gardens and stone walls. And in that view there is a kind of music, though no sound can be heard, except for the occasional sigh of the breeze through the high branches above. One woman reaches into her pocket and pulls out something, wrapped in a bit of wool cloth, and the other waits without question, and when the cloth is unwrapped, there is a single dried plum nestled, inside dark and wrinkled and sweet with memory, and the first woman breaks it in half and hands, one piece to the other, and they eat in silence, and the act is so small and so ordinary that it becomes sacred, a communion of the simple and the tender, and the years behind them gather in that gesture, as though every kindness and every shared moment now lives within that single plum between them. When they return to the cottage, the fire is already low, and the room is dim, but not dark, for the embers cast a red glow that flickers across the floor and walls and ceiling, and the women move easily through the space, one lighting a taper and placing it near the hearth, the other reaching for a pot of water to warm, and every movement feels as if it has been done 100 times before, and each time with just as much care as now, not because it is remarkable, but because it is theirs, and that is enough. Later they sit together on the floor, their backs resting against the cool stone of the hearth. And one woman has a bit of unspun wool in her lap, and she begins to twist it, between her fingers shaping it slowly into thread, and the other watches. Her hands, not because she does not know the process, but because watching is its own form of reverence. And in that watching, there is history and trust, and the quiet admiration that grows in places where words fall away. Outside, the night deepens, and the stars above blink into view like small eyes opening in a sky that has forgotten how to speak, and the moon rises round and low over the edge of the trees, and its light spills silver across the rooftops and catches the window panes of the cottage, and for a moment it looks as though the whole village is lit from within, as though the world itself is breathing slow and deep and full. The two women do not rise. They do not speak. They sit and they rest, and their shoulders touch, and their breathing matches, and a fire hums softly between them. And in that moment the night is not long or short, or waiting or ending. It simply is, and they simply are. And in the space between what they do and what they feel, there is peace. Sometimes one will lean her head against the other, and sometimes she will close her eyes, and sleep will come. Not suddenly, but gently like a warm hand over the brow. And sometimes the other will reach and cover her with a shawl. And sometimes she will not, for she knows that presence alone is warmth enough, and that breath beside. Breath is the oldest comfort, the truest one, the one passed down from body to body, from touch to touch. And when sleep does come, it is not the kind that takes you away, but the kind that brings you deeper into the world. A sleep rooted in knowing that you are not alone, that the hours ahead will pass with a heart beside yours, that will not leave, will not forget, will not look away. And in this kind of sleep, there are no dreams, only the hum of the hearth, and the hush of the dark, and the memory of hands brushing, and the echo of footsteps on a familiar path. As the night folds in and the cottage sinks further into quiet, the walls do not listen, and the shadows do not whisper, and the wind outside does not call. Instead, everything waits with them, not watching, not judging, only existing in the same stillness. And this is what makes this space sacred, not what it holds, but what it allows, and what it does not ask. It does not ask for explanation. It does not ask for approval. It does not ask for names or roles or confessions. It simply gives them a place. And in that place, they grow not outward, but inward, like roots or like embers, or like threads pulled close and tight into cloth. And the warmth they build between them is not seen from the outside, but it is felt in every shared silence, every echoed breath, every glance that lingers just a little longer than needed, even when morning comes, even when the birds begin again, and the light finds its way back through the shutters. Even then the memory of that night will remain, not because it was rare, but because it was real, and it was theirs, and that is what makes it precious. For love that grows without needing to name itself is the kind that holds strongest. It is the love that fits into the bend of a back, or the hush of a room, or the worn stone of a path, walked again and again and again, and in the hearts of those who lived it, that love stays. Not as fire, not as storm, but as quiet as soil, as steady as rain, as soft as wool pulled, between hands that know how to spin not only thread, but a life woven together. And so they go on, not marked in history, not carved in stone, not written in scrolls, or sung in verse, but carried in the quiet places of the world, where no one looks, but where everything lives. The stories of these women linger like soft echoes carried on the wind, weaving through time, quietly persistent. Their love was not marked by grand gestures or public acclaim, but by the gentle currents that flow beneath everyday life, unseen, yet ever present. In the hush of cottages, cloisters and fields where their footsteps once fell, the traces of their bonds remain visible only to those who know how to look beyond the surface. They built their lives on foundations of trust, companionship, and resilience, navigating a world that rarely offered them space to be fully seen, or understood. Their love was often hidden, wrapped in layers of ritual, shared labor, and subtle signs known only to those who lived it. Yet in that concealment lay a quiet power, a steadfastness that outlasted fear, judgment, and the passing of years. It was a love that demanded patient strength and a courage born of necessity. Within the fabric of their daily routines, these women found sanctuary in small acts of care and moments of shared tenderness. The touch of a hand as it lingered just a little longer, the silent understanding in a glance, exchanged across a room, the comfort of presence in the long evenings spent side by side. These were the threads that bound their lives, weaving a tapestry of connection, rich with meaning even when words were scarce, though history may have muted their voices, erased their names, or relegated their stories to the margins. Their legacy persists. It lives on in the quiet strength of those who came after, who draw inspiration from the resilience and love that endured in the shadows. Their lives remind us that love is not always loud or visible, but when nurtured with honesty and devotion, it can become a force capable of transcending time and place. As the centuries unfold, these hidden stories invite use to look closer, listen deeper, and honor the countless lives lived with courage and tenderness. They call us to remember that in every age love finds a way, whether spoken boldly or whispered softly in the spaces between words. Their presence is a testament to the enduring human spirit and the unyielding desire to belong, to be seen, and to love freely, without fear or restraint. The hidden lives of medieval women's love and loyalty. In the gentle unfolding of dawn, the village breathes slowly into waking light. The earth still holds the coolness of night, as first rays stretch their fingers across rooftops and fields. The sky a canvas of pale gold and soft blues promises the quiet beginning of another day. Women rise from their simple beds within stone walls cradled by the rhythm of time, woven deep into the fabric of their lives, their movements deliberate, measured, like the slow dance of light upon ancient wood and worn stone. They step barefoot upon cold floors, carrying the echoes of dreams within them. Each gesture becomes a ritual as they draw back heavy, curtains let in the first light, and tend fires long tended by hands that have come before. In these moments, there is a sacredness to the ordinary, a quiet reverence for the day yet to be lived, and the unseen bonds that hold their world together. Within the heart of the village, the air fills with the soft sounds of waking life. The clatter of wooden bowls, the hum of whispered greetings, the rustle of fabric as women prepare for the labors that will sustain them. Each task is approached with a quiet grace, a blending of strength and gentleness that reflects the depth of lives spent in both solitude and togetherness. The gardens outside the cottages bloom with herbs and wildflowers, each leaf and petal, a testament to knowledge passed from mother to daughter, aunt to niece. Women bend over soil, turned rich by centuries of care, their fingers coaxing life from the earth in a sacred exchange that mirrors the care they give one another. In these shared spaces, stories are told without words, through a glance, a smile, a hand laid lightly on a shoulder. Inside humble homes, the scent of wood smoke and freshly baked bread mingles with the fragrance of lavender, rosemary, and sage. The kitchens become sanctuaries, where meals are prepared with loving hands, nourishing both body and soul. The sharing of bread and water is itself an act of communion, a silent pledge of loyalty and care passed between women who find strength in each other's presence. In the weaving rooms, the steady rhythm of looms is joined by the murmur of voices. Women work side by side, turning fibers into cloth threads, intertwined much like their own lives. Their conversations flow easily between practical concerns and whispered stories of longing and hope. The act of weaving becomes a metaphor for the bonds. They forge a tapestry not just of fabric, but of connection and resilience. Beyond the daily labors, women seek moments of quiet companionship. In the shade of ancient trees or along the banks of gently flowing streams, pairs and small groups gather, their voices soft as the wind as they share secret dreams and the sorrows too heavy for the world outside. Language spoken here is subtle, nuanced, woven from glances, touches, and the shared weight of understanding. As the sun climbs higher, The village bustles with activity, yet within its heart, a gentle undercurrent persists. Love in these moments is not declared with grand gestures, but felt deeply in the small acts of presence. The careful tending of a garden, the offer of a hand to steady a step, the quiet listening that acknowledges pain and joy alike. These are the moments that build a foundation of trust and belonging. Children play nearby, their laughter ringing out clear and bright, a contrast to the soft conversations held in the hidden corners. Women watch with tender eyes, knowing that the future is carried not just in their hands, but in the hearts of those who will come after them. Here the seeds of love and loyalty are planted, early watered by example, and nurtured by the strength of the women who walk before. In the spaces between work and rest, stories are passed down through song and tale. Each narrative a thread that binds the present to the past, weaving a lineage of resilience and hope. Women listen closely, drawing strength from the lives of those who faced hardships and yet found joy in the quiet moments of connection. Their own stories become part of this living history, a testament to survival and the enduring power of love. When the light softens and shadows lengthen, women gather once more. Around fires whose flames flicker like ancient spirits, they share laughter, tears, and silent understanding. The circle formed is more than a gathering. It is a sanctuary, a place where vulnerability is met with acceptance and where love finds expression beyond words. The bonds here are palpable, steady, and unbreakable, a refuge from a world that too often demands silence. Imagine now the intimate exchanges that take place beneath closed doors and behind shuttered windows. The brushing of hands, the shared warmth of a cloak, the exchange of whispered promises. These moments, though hidden, are no less real, no less vital than any spoken aloud. They are the quiet revolutions of the heart, acts of courage and defiance that claim space for love in a world that often denies it. In the weaving of daily life, love and loyalty become intertwined strands, neither fully seen nor easily defined. Yet they are no less powerful. Their strength lies in endurance, in the ability to persist in the face of adversity, to create meaning within the margins, and to build lives filled with tenderness and trust. These women become architects of a hidden world, a world where connection is both shield and sanctuary. As the day unfolds and the village moves with steady purpose, the lives of these women pulse quietly beneath the surface. Their stories remain largely unwritten, yet their presence is felt in every gesture, every shared glance, and every act of care. It is a presence that defies erasure and speaks to the unyielding human need to love and be loved beyond the boundaries imposed by time and society. Through the soft light of dawn and the steady rhythm of work, love lives in the spaces between the visible and invisible, in the gentle touch of a soul, hand, and the quiet strength of shared solitude. It is a love that carries the weight of history, yet moves forward with hope, weaving a tapestry of loyalty and devotion that stretches beyond the confines of the village, beyond the pages of history, into the hearts of those who remember and honor these hidden lives. The village stirs slowly beneath, a sky brushed with pale light spilling softly across the fields and rooftops. Women rise from their beds, stepping out into the cool morning air with movements gentle yet purposeful. Each carries the weight of a new day, the tasks waiting patiently, the gardens calling, the hearths needing tending, and the threads ready to be woven into the fabric of life. In every gesture, there is intention, a quiet strength that shapes the rhythm of the village and the lives within it. The gardens lie bordered by low stone walls, patches of earth rich with herbs and flowers flourishing under careful hands. Women bend low their fingers, coaxing life from soil. Their breaths mingle with the sweet scent of lavender, thyme, and rosemary, fragrances that carry healing and comfort. These gardens become sacred spaces where the mundane act of tending plants transforms into ritual, nurturing life and hope. Side by side, they work in quiet harmony, their shared labor weaving invisible threads of connection and care. In the soft light, women gather in small clusters, exchanging stories and wisdom, voices low and steady, weaving a tapestry of collective memory and experience. Knowledge of herbs and remedies passed from mother to daughter is shared with reverence and trust. Within these conversations lies a deeper language, a bond of understanding that spans generations. This secret knowledge provides strength and solace in times of hardship and joy. It is a lifeline connecting women through space and time, binding them in an unspoken sisterhood. Within the homes, the hearth fires glow warm and bright. The women move with practiced grace, stirring pots, weaving cloth, sewing fabric. Each motion is a thread in the fabric of daily life, a silent testimony to endurance and care. The hearth is the heart of home, a place where nourishment is prepared, stories are told, and warmth kindled both in body and spirit. In these spaces, the simple acts of making become acts of love and resistance, weaving a web of resilience across the village. The weaving rooms stand filled with the steady rhythm of shuttles, clattering, and threads crossing and intertwining like silent sentinels. The looms witness the passage of time. Women work side by side, transforming raw fibers into fabric that will clothe families and carry the stories of identity and belonging. The act of weaving becomes creation itself, a joining of past hopes, present needs, and future dreams. Threads intersect and intertwine like the lives of the women who labor in harmony, each pattern telling a story written without words, beyond the village boundaries. Networks stretch unseen, like delicate threads connecting women across the countryside. Letters travel carefully folded and sealed with wax, bearing messages of longing and reassurance. The script inside curves and flourishes, known only to those meant to receive them. Within these words are whispers of love and friendship, lines bridging distance and time, binding hearts separated by circumstance. These letters create a tapestry of connection, defying the isolation imposed by geography and society, weaving a fabric of companionship and hope. In the bustling marketplace, the air is thick with scents of fresh bread, ripe fruit, and wildflowers. Women move through the crowd with caution and quiet resolve. Their eyes meet in brief glances. Hands brush lightly in moments charged with meaning. The marketplace becomes a stage for subtle acts of defiance, whispered words, and knowing smiles, claiming space for love and loyalty in a world that often denies such bonds. The dance of presence and absence plays out in public gaze, a delicate balancing act of visibility and concealment. Children weave through the crowd, their laughter, bright threads woven into the fabric of community. Women watch over them with tenderness eyes, soft with hope and concern. The lessons taught are more than practical skills, they are lessons in resilience, compassion, and the courage to love quietly. These teachings pass in touch and story, rippling through generations, shaping lives both visible and unseen. As afternoon light softens, women gather in shaded corners, sharing stories of love and loyalty, stories of women walking side by side for years, enduring hardships and celebrating joys. Partnerships formed in quiet rebellion, nurtured with patience. These narratives, spoken with reverence, carry awe and tenderness for the courage needed to live authentically in a world demanding conformity. These histories live in the spaces between words, in exchanged glances and steadfast companionship refusing erasure. Evening approaches, bringing fires small and large. Voices rise in song, weaving memory and hope into melodies floating on the night air. Songs speak of love transcending boundaries of time and place, carrying the weight of experience and lightness of dreams. Flickering firelight reveals faces lined with wisdom and strength, showing the power found in shared vulnerability and connection. Within these circles, the language of love is diverse. A look, a touch, a shared silence, each gesture a vital piece of a larger whole. Women speak not only of romantic love, but of loyalty, friendship, and unspoken understanding that sustains them. Bonds build on acts of care, tending wounds, sharing burdens, and celebrating victories. These foundations create a hidden world of resilience and hope, woven from tenderness and courage. As darkness deepens, the village settles into peaceful hush. Stars appear scattered like jewels across the velvet sky. Their light casts silver glow, bathing rooftops, fields, and trees in serene calm, a quiet witness to lives unfolding below. Women find moments of solitude and reflection in their homes, hearts beating in rhythm with earth, carrying memories of those who came before and hopes for those yet to come. Night holds their secrets, their dreams, and their love a sanctuary beyond fear and judgment. In candlelight, women craft letters and tokens of affection, hands steady, minds focused on words and symbols, carrying love across distance and time. These letters are acts of resistance and hope, affirmations of existence in a world that often tries to erase them. Presence lingers in ink on parchment, folded paper and silent spaces between lines where meaning blooms like hidden flowers. The village and its women form part of a larger story, a tapestry woven from countless threads of love, loyalty, and resilience, lives invisible to many, yet whose impact echoes through generations. Through care, friendship, and quiet courage to love, these women create a legacy defying erasure, a testament to the enduring power of connection. Imagine the legacy unfolding, passing hand to hand, heart to heart. Stories of women who loved and lived authentically in times that sought to silence them become beacons for those who come after. Testaments to strength found in tenderness, freedom discovered in companionship, and unbreakable ties binding across time and space. Within these hidden lives, we find reflections of our own desires for belonging and understanding, reminders that love in all its forms transforms lives, reshapes worlds. Even veiled in silence or shadowed by fear, love persists, steadily weaving a web of hope, stretching beyond history into present and future. The daily tasks and quiet gestures build a world beneath the surface, one where love, loyalty, and trust grow strong in the cracks and crevices of a life lived fully and quietly. These women walk paths, not marked by ceremony, but by shared glances, intertwined hands, and the steady beating of hearts that refuse to be silenced. Their lives ripple through time, leaving traces that cannot be erased. Each day dawns with promise, and each night closes with whispered blessings. The rhythm of seasons and cycles of nature mirror the slow unfolding of love in its many forms. Here, the smallest act, a shared smile, a brush of fingers, a knowing look becomes a beacon shining through the shadows. This is the hidden life of medieval women, their love a steady flame, glowing quietly but fiercely against the dark. Their stories are written in the folds of cloth, the stitching of hems, the weaving of threads in the letters sent in the songs sung softly in the night, and in the glances exchanged across markets and fields. They live in the memories passed from mother to daughter, aunt to niece, sister to sister, in the silences that speak louder than words, and in the bonds that hold steady despite the storms. These women carve spaces of belonging where none seem to exist, claiming corners of the world with their laughter, their tenderness, their fierce determination to love and be loved without apology. They find freedom in the small acts of presence, in the quiet courage to show up day after day, weaving a legacy not written in chronicles, but etched in the hearts of those who remember. The resilience of their love becomes a beacon across centuries, a thread connecting past to present and future. Silent promise that no matter the weight of silence or the harshness of judgment, love finds a way to endure and flourish in shadows and light. Our lives call out across time, inviting us to recognize the power of love in all its forms and to honor the courage it takes to live authentically. Imagine a world shaped by these hidden histories, a world where love in all its variations is seen, heard, and celebrated, a world where the bonds forged in quiet corners bloom freely under open skies, a world where the strength of tenderness, the courage of connection, and the beauty of belonging create a foundation for a richer, fuller humanity. In this imagining, we are called to listen closely to the stories, whispered through time, to feel the pulse of lives lived with quiet bravery, and to carry forward the legacy of love that refuses to be silenced. This is the gift of the women who walked before us, a testament to the enduring human spirit and the boundless capacity of the heart to love without fear. Through the rhythms of daily life, the weaving of community, and the sharing of stories, these women teach us that love is not always loud or visible, but it is less real, no less powerful, no less transformative. Their lives remind us that the most profound revolutions begin in the quiet spaces of the heart and grow through the steady acts of courage and care that build a better world for all. The day stretches slowly into evening. Light fades gently across the village rooftops and fields. Women move with quiet purpose, their footsteps soft against the earth. Their hands carry burdens both seen and unseen. The tasks of the day mingle with the steady pulse of whispered secrets and tender glances in the marketplace, the loom room, and along winding paths where wildflowers bloom in defiance of time and judgment. In the shade of ancient trees, women gather to share the fruit of their labor and the stories held deep within their hearts. These stories flow like rivers, winding through memory and hope. They speak of love both fierce and fragile, forged in the fires of resistance and nurtured in the quiet moments when two souls find refuge in one another as presence. The words are not always spoken aloud, yet their power fills the air like the scent of jasmine at dusk. Along narrow lanes, children chase the fading light, their laughter weaving a melody that echoes the rhythms of community and connection. Women watch with eyes full of tenderness and dreams. They understand the lessons hidden beneath play, the unspoken truths passed from generation to generation. A touch, a look, a shared smile become the language of belonging and resilience, shaping the future in ways both subtle and profound. Within humble cottages, the hearth fires glow, casting shadows that dance across walls, worn by time and love. The women sit side by side, their hands busy with thread and fabric, each stitch a quiet act of devotion and care. The weaving of cloth becomes a metaphor for their lives, the intertwining of strength and softness, the binding of past to present, and the promise of a future where love needs no apology or concealment. Beyond the village borders, letters travel like gentle winds, carrying words sealed with wax and wrapped in symbols known only to those who understand. Their messages speak of longing and loyalty, hope and defiance. These precious tokens create invisible bridges across distance and circumstance, connecting hearts and minds in a world that often seeks to divide. The ink flows like a river of resilience, etching stories that refuse to be forgotten. The marketplace buzzes with life, a tapestry of sights, sounds, and scents. Women move through the crowd with practiced grace, their eyes meeting in brief exchanges that hold entire worlds of meaning. Hands brush lightly in moments charged with the electricity of hidden affection. The public gaze demands invisibility, yet these women claim their space through subtle acts of courage and presence, weaving a dance of concealment and revelation. As twilight deepens, the village comes alive with song. Voices rise in harmony, filling the night air with melodies that carry memory and hope. Songs tell of loves that transcend time and place, stories of partnerships formed in shadows, yet shining with a brilliance that refuses to be dimmed. The firelight flickers on faces etched with wisdom and resilience, illuminating the sacred power of shared vulnerability and connection. In these circles, the language of love takes many forms: a glance, a touch, a silence shared in understanding. Women speak of bonds beyond romance, of friendships that sustain and of loyalties that hold firm. Their connections are built on acts of care, tending wounds, sharing burdens, and celebrating victories. Together they create a hidden world rich with tenderness, courage, and unwavering strength. Night wraps the village in its quiet. Embrace stars sprinkle the sky like scattered jewels. Their light casts a serene glow over rooftops, fields, and trees, a silent witness to lives unfolding beneath. Their hearts beat in time with the earth, carrying the weight of memories, dreams, and unspoken promises. The darkness becomes a sanctuary, a place where love can breathe free away from the harsh judgments of the day. In the hush of night, women craft letters and tokens of affection, their hands steady, their minds focused on the words and symbols that will carry love across miles and years. These letters are acts of defiance, affirmations of existence in a world that often tries to silence them. Each line a whispered vow, a secret held safe in ink and paper, blossoms of meaning unfolding in the spaces between. The legacy of these women reaches beyond the boundaries of the village, woven into the fabric of history, though often unseen. Their stories ripple through time, a testament to the enduring power of loyalty and resilience. Their quiet bravery lights a path for those who follow, reminding us that love in all its forms is a force that cannot be denied. Imagine, now the generations connected through these acts of courage and care, the threads, linking past to present and future. Women who loved without apology, who built communities of trust and tenderness despite the odds. Their lives invite us to honor the hidden histories, to listen closely, and to carry forward a legacy rich with compassion and strength. Through the rhythm of daily life, the sharing of stories, and the weaving of bonds, these women teach us that love is not always loud or visible, yet its presence transforms lives, reshapes worlds. It begins in the quiet spaces of the heart, growing through steady acts of courage and care, creating a foundation for a world where every love is seen, heard, and celebrated. Beyond the visible acts of daily labor, beyond the simple exchanges of kindness and solidarity, lies a profound narrative of endurance and hope. This narrative threads through every glance exchanged in secret, every hand held beneath folds of fabric, every soft word passed under breath. The story of women who loved fiercely, yet quietly, who built worlds of meaning within walls that sought to contain them. Their love was a balm and a rebellion, a refuge and a declaration. It blossomed in the hidden gardens of the heart and found expression in the mundane tasks that sustained life. Each shared meal, each woven thread, each letter penned with trembling hands, was a testament to the power of connection in the face of isolation. The flowers in the gardens that bloomed despite harsh winters, the songs hummed softly in the stillness, the letters tucked beneath stones for safekeeping, all carry echoes of these lives lived with courage and tenderness. Their stories, though often untold, are stitched into the very fabric of history, waiting to be discovered, honored, and remembered. And as the village breathes beneath the stars, as the night carries whispers of love and longing, we are reminded that history is not only the grand and the loud, but the quiet and the resilient. The love that endured in shadows and in silence holds lessons for us today about strength, vulnerability, and the endless capacity of the human heart. Let us listen to these whispered legacies with open hearts. Let us carry forward the stories of those who loved against the odds, and in doing so, weave a richer tapestry of human experience, one where every voice is heard, every love honored, and every life valued. As the village slowly settles into the quiet embrace of night, the sky deepens into a velvety cloak, scattered with countless stars that shimmer like distant lanterns hanging in the vast expanse above. Women draw close within their homes, gathering near fires whose soft glow casts dancing shadows that flicker gently across the worn wooden beams and stone walls. Each hearth becomes a sanctuary, a sacred space where stories, memories, and love intertwine beyond the reach of the outside world. In the silence between heartbeats, there is a sacred rhythm, a pulse that connects these women across time and space. Their hands reach out not only to tend the flames, but to find one another, to offer comfort, strength, and the gentle assurance that they are not alone. Through whispered words shared in the soft cadence of friendship, they weave invisible threads of belonging, a tapestry woven from resilience, tenderness, and shared secrets. The women's voices rise in quiet song melodies, passed down through generations, songs that speak of longing, hope, and the fierce joy of companionship. These songs hold histories not written in scrolls, but etched in memory, carried in breath and voice, like a living flame that refuses to be extinguished. In their harmonies, we hear the echoes of loves that blossomed in the shadows, and the quiet courage of those who dared to claim connection in a world that sought to deny them. Outside, the night air carries the scent of earth and herbs, the cool breeze rustles, the leaves whispering ancient stories only the attentive can hear. In this moment, the natural world becomes a witness, a guardian of secrets held close to the heart. The stars above watch silently as the women gather their strength, weaving bonds that transcend the boundaries of time and space creating a legacy of love, loyalty, and courage. Within the dim light of a candlelit room, two women sit side by side, their hands intertwined, fingers laced in a silent promise of devotion. Their eyes meet with a tenderness that speaks of shared dreams and unspoken understanding. In the stillness of this moment, the world outside fades away, leaving only the warmth of their presence and the steady beating of hearts aligned in quiet harmony. As night deepens, the village breathes a slow, measured breath, the houses standing like sentinels, guarding stories of love lived without fanfare, yet rich with meaning. These stories live not in grand monuments, but in the everyday acts of care, the whispered names, the lingering touches, and the steadfast presence that defies erasure and time. The legacy of these women is a quiet revolution, one that ripples through the centuries, carried on the breath of those who remember, and those who dare to love boldly and without apology. Their lives teach us that love is not defined by the approval of others, but by the courage to live authentically and the strength to nurture connection, even in the face of adversity. Imagine now the countless hearts that beat in time with this enduring legacy, the generations of women who have loved with fierce gentleness, who have built communities of trust, tenderness, and unyielding support. Their stories rise like a chorus, a song of resilience that invites us all to honor the fullness of love in every form, and to carry forward the flame of courage and compassion. In the stillness of night, as the village sleeps beneath the watchful eyes of stars, we are reminded that every whispered secret, every stolen glance, every hand held tight, is part of a vast tapestry of human experience woven through time with threads of hope, resilience, and love. These are the stories that history nearly forgot, yet they pulse with life, inviting you to listen to the quiet power of love, lived bravely and fully. So as the dawn waits patiently beyond the horizon, as the first light prepares to touch the earth again, let us carry with us the lessons of these hidden lives, the enduring strength found in tenderness, and the unbreakable bonds forged in silence. Their legacy is a gift, a call to live with openness, courage, and the deep knowing that love in all its forms is sacred and worthy of celebration. With hearts full of gratitude and eyes open to the beauty that surrounds us, we move forward, carrying the stories of these women with us, weaving new threads into the ever-growing tapestry of human connection. A tapestry that holds space for every love, every voice, and every soul seeking belonging and truth. And thus ends this chapter in the quiet unfolding of history. A chapter not written in grand scripts, but lived in the soft footsteps, the gentle hands, and the steadfast hearts of women who loved with a fierce grace that continues to shine across time and space, lighting the way for those who follow. The night's embrace deepens as silence settles over the village like a comforting blanket, wrapping every stone and every heart in its tender fold. In the stillness, the women's memories gather like soft whispers, carried on the breath of the wind, their lives woven from threads of courage, kindness, and quiet rebellion against a world that too often refused to see them. Their stories live not only in the past, but breathe within the present, inspiring those who dare to love beyond boundaries. In these sacred moments, the space between words fills with meaning. The gentle brush of fingertips and knowing glance, the closeness of bodies leaning into the warmth of shared presence, all become sacred acts embodying a love that defies erasure and denial. These connections are the true treasures of their existence, delicate yet unbreakable, shining quietly like stars, guiding souls through the darkest nights. The hearth fires glow low, their flickering light, casting golden hues over faces, etched with lines of both hardship and joy. Each flame, a symbol of resilience and the enduring power of love that burns steady even when hidden from sight. Around these fires, women share not only warmth, but strength, weaving stories that stitch together generations, bridging past and future with threads of hope and tenderness. The natural world joins in this quiet vigil. The night sky, vast and deep, watches over fields and forests, where wild creatures move softly in rhythm with the unseen pulse of the earth. Here in this communion, The women find solace drawing strength from the cycles of nature and the knowledge that love, like the seasons, is ever returning, ever renewing, even in the face of silence and loss. Letters carefully penned in candlelight carry messages of hope, longing, and steadfast devotion. Traveling across distance and time, these fragile tokens become lifelines, connecting hearts that no walls or laws can separate. Within the folds of parchment lie vows of friendship and love words that breathe life into bonds that sustain and uplift. The legacy these women leave is not one of grand monuments or celebrated tales, but of daily acts of care, courage, and tenderness. It is a testament to the power of love lived authentically and fiercely, a challenge to every era to recognize and honor the myriad ways love manifests beyond convention and constraint as dawn approaches. The first light gently spills over the horizon, promising a new day filled with possibility. The stories of these women rise like morning mist, weaving through the village streets, carrying the echoes of laughter, tears, and whispered dreams. Their courage lights a path forward, inviting all who listen to walk with open hearts and unshaken resolve. And so, with the coming of day, the chapter closes, but the song lingers, the flame endures, and the legacy thrives, carried forward by every hand that reaches out, every voice that sings, and every heart that loves without fear or apology. The tapestry of human connection grows, richer, deeper, more vibrant with each passing moment, a living tribute to the enduring strength of love in all its beautiful forms. As the sun rises gently over the village, casting its golden light upon rooftops and fields, the world awakens anew. Yet the stories of these women linger softly in the air, like the last notes of a beloved song, their lives a quiet testament to love lived, bravely and tenderly beyond the bounds of time and convention. In every whispered secret, every lingering touch, and every shared glance, we find echoes of their courage and grace. Their legacy is not carved in stone, nor sung from great halls, but woven into the very fabric of human experience. A reminder that love takes many forms, each worthy of honor, each a thread in the vast tapestry of connection and belonging. As we carry their stories forward, we are called to embrace love with openness, courage, and kindness, to see beyond the surface and cherish the depth and beauty found in all bonds of the heart. So let us remember these women whose love shone like a quiet flame through the darkest nights, whose loyalty and tenderness built sanctuaries of hope and strength. And may their courage inspire us to live authentically, to love without fear, and to honor every story that enriches the human soul. For in the end, it is love that endures, the force that shapes our past, our present, and the future yet to come. And with this gentle closing, we leave the village at rest, cradled in the tender arms of night, carrying with us the soft light of their lives, a beacon for all who seek belonging and the courage to love freely and fully.